Had a better long-run pace than we saw from them in Bahrain.
They did, almost reminiscent of Bahrain, isn't it, in the way that they were on the back foot, then turned up in qualifying.
And I wonder if it's going to be a similar story. Were they running with engines turned very low yesterday? Remember, they've had reliability concerns as well so far with the power unit this year. Not something they'd have hoped that we'd been mentioning in round 2 of this season, given it was such a problem for them last year. But possibly saving a little bit on that front. And it's so power sensitive around the circuit, you don't use everything from the engine, and it'll cost you a lot of performance. So I wonder if there's more to come from Ferrari. I think there is. What about Mercedes? Russell very happy yesterday. Lewis Hamilton less so in the other car. George doesn't look like he's about to head out, does he?
He does not. And it's a nice leisurely time of things down there at all of the garages. We say this word a lot with night races, but it is an unrepresentative condition setting that we have at the moment. The air temperature is 27 degrees, the track temperature 43, but these are not the conditions they'll be qualifying in. These are not the conditions they'll be racing in. As a result, not a lot of interest down there at the end of the pit lane as the green light illuminates. And as a result, we'll take you round the houses, if you like, of this circuit that is going to hold its 3rd Grand Prix at this track. Talk in the future of adding a couple of races in Saudi Arabia. Certainly the country would like to do that. A lot of Grand Prix venues, though, desperate to get on the calendar. So that's their aspiration. But at the moment, we have the one trip to Jeddah, and unusual venue to build a circuit as a street circuit deliberately with the walls as close. For many years, this would never have been signed off for safety reasons.
No, but that's what gives it a little bit of individuality. It's the speed, but it's the proximity, the barriers, and the slogan of the world's fastest street circuit. Quite a lot of races already in the desert. Qatar coming back onto the calendar later this year.
Later in the year. And taking a look at Valtteri Bottas, but a few garages along. Sam Collins has made his way down to AlphaTauri.
Yeah, just down here at the end of the pit lane, because normally at the start of a session you see a lot of cars queued up, and actually the first car to take to the track is one of the Aston Martins. I think the other one will be coming out presently. They were the only team that looked particularly interested in taking to the track. One driver, though, that you're not going to see take to the track anytime soon, possibly even in this session, is Nick de Vries, the AlphaTauri driver, number 21. His car is rapidly being dismantled to its component parts. At the back of the garage, the gearbox is off and being worked on, while it looks to me, with the work going on with the mechanics there, that the entire Honda power unit is going to be removed from the back of the monocoque here, and this car is looking like it's not going to get out on time. So I suspect that there are big troubles down in AlphaTauri land, at least for Nick de Vries. Over on Yuki Tsunoda's side of the garage, everything looks to be running according to plan, but we did see some concerns for the Honda power units, at least in the back of Sergio Perez's car, and I wonder if there's a repetition of that issue that's been found on the back of Nick de Vries's car. Yuki Tsunoda is in the garage chatting to his team, but there's no panic, and this all looks completely normal and according to schedule. But there you can see he's walking past his teammate's gearbox, which very much should be attached to a different part of the car. So guys, no sign of Nick de Vries taking to the track, and indeed up and down.
Okay, Lance, if we have the intercom issue, you're boxing end of this lap, boxing at the end of this lap for a pit stop.
Copy.
It's rather quiet down here, unless you're an AlphaTauri mechanic, where it's anything but. Back to you guys.
The only man doing any real work down there, apart from AlphaTauri, Sam Collins, getting stuck in on the circuit. Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll out there for Aston Martin, but it's always...
So we're still happy to lean on them a bit through here, so full throttle through here, good straight line speed. You can lean on them left and right a bit, and then it's box.
People questioning whether he is a rookie. Surely he's a rookie. He's done one race last year as a last-minute super sub.
Yeah, full season rookie. First full campaign coming ahead of him. It is weird when you come in to Formula One with two major titles, though. He's the Formula 2 champion, he's the Formula E champion.
So there's hype.
So there's hype, there's credentials, and there's a trophy cabinet at home.
Yeah, exactly, and it all brings expectation. That's why he's been signed by AlphaTauri on the back of what he did in the Williams last year in Monza as well. But he's not had the easiest of starts, Nick, in that team. Yuki Tsunoda, let's be honest, he's not the most highly rated benchmark out there. He's been doing an okay job, but he's not been leading that team. That was Pierre Gasly for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
So the opportunity's there for De Vries to come in and assert himself as team leader at AlphaTauri as an experienced rookie. But so far it is that man, Yuki, that's been ahead.
Okay, Fernando, so have a bit faster in the first sector, please, on these harder turns. A bit faster in the first sector. Copy.
Struggling to match the pace of Tsunoda. And it looks like he's going to miss potentially the whole of this session, which is not what he needs on a circuit that he's not driven before yesterday. Needs to get some miles in.
Yeah, complete contrast to when he made his debut in Monza, scored ninth on debut, was chucked in there. AlphaTauri not in that team previously known as Toro Rosso, not in the greatest vein of form. If you consider that this is a team that won races with Sebastian Vettel. One back in 2008. I know it's a bit of a callback, that one. But more recently, of course, with Pierre Gasly. You mentioned Gasly's exit from the team. They're slightly on the back foot. There's interesting comments. I mean, Franz Tost passing off the "I don't trust the engineers anymore" as a joke afterwards, but it was hard to tell if it was a joke at the time.
Well, he's deadpan, isn't he?
He is.
Franz Tost, always. I don't think it was. I don't think you could take those words literally. They're a team there that haven't changed majorly. They've lost a key driver, but they have built good race cars for the last number of years. And the car they've got now, it's not a disaster. They're in the mix. And we were saying yesterday how there's no tail end Charlie anymore. All 10 teams look like they can score points every weekend right now. You're looking at McLaren, tough start to the season for them, but Norris was fighting in the top 10 before his car started to misfire in Bahrain. Williams did get a point with Alex Albon. Alfa Romeo, Bottas was the man that was slowest yesterday, but yet he was quite quick in Bahrain as well and could yet make Q3 later on. And then there's AlphaTauri in there. Haas, Hulkenberg flying yesterday, got himself into Q3 as well in Bahrain. So it's small margins, and with that tight midfield pack, maybe missing their number one driver for the last couple of seasons, just holding them back a bit as well.
Confirmation that Nick de Vries is changing the power unit in the back of the car, and he will not be taking part in FP3. He can take a little bit of solace from the fact that Kevin Magnussen last year was in a similar situation, and he managed to have a very competitive Grand Prix, scoring here 3 of the 4 opening races of the season. So a lost session is not the end of the weekend by any means. It was quite tough when Jolene's told you about the close timing nature of the midfield. Basically, there's Red Bull out front, there's a scrap going on behind them, and then there is no slowest car. There's just a midfield that never seems to end.
So it's going to be very tough for De Vries then. Yeah. Missing this hour, as unrepresentative as it might be, it's you still need it to get your eye line in, to feel the car, to make some small changes before qualifying. Hopefully small changes before qualifying later on. Just getting your fine-tuning tools ready, and De Vries is not going to have this hour to try and do that. So he's going to be thrown right into the thick of things later on in qualifying.
Alex Albon in your picture. The Williams once again looking very slippery in a straight line. Looking good in the power parts of the track, but again a proviso that we haven't seen everyone turn it up into qualifying engine modes. We'll get that picture. Charles Leclerc on the back foot yesterday, but he was saying there was more to come, more in the locker for Ferrari, so they didn't seem too concerned down there.
He's got a 10-place grid penalty.
Let's
not forget, for Leclerc. So as good as he's been around this circuit for the last couple of seasons, he's not going to be featuring for pole position later on. For Leclerc, it's about, can he get back towards an unlikely podium even with a 10-place grid drop? When you see the competitiveness of the Aston Martin,
he'd definitely take that now if you offered it to him.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the dream for Leclerc for this weekend. When you look at the Aston Martin pace, Alonso right on it yesterday from the word go. Mercedes looking as Mercedes were really in Bahrain. but Alpine may be joining the fray with them as well. Alpine had a really strong day yesterday. Both drivers looking hooked up, very positive about their chances, and that's not going to help the chances of a recovering Leclerc in the Grand Prix tomorrow. He's still got to qualify as high as he possibly can today to limit the damage of that 10th-place grid drop.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc managing to do in yesterday's FP2 what he hasn't managed to do in the previous years, and get through it without an accident. So that's a step forward, encouraging step forward for the Ferrari driver, but he does have the baggage of that 10th-place drop as he tries to continue on with the strong form that he's shown around this racetrack. He was 6 laps away from taking victory here last year. As we look at Oscar Piastri out on circuit, the first retirement of the season, last time out in Bahrain, and the Formula 3 champion of a couple of years ago, the Formula 2 champion, and now taking his step up to Formula 1. And as the graphic showed you a few moments ago, he was taking victory in the feature race here, one of 4 feature races that he won.
At the launch, clutch drop was 1% shallow, and radio check turned 13.
Yep, 10, 13.
Yep, that's loud and clear.
Similar thing for him in his rookie season of Formula 1.
Number 81.
Here we go.
For Oscar Piastri, the second Formula 1 driver in history to run the number 81.
He was.
After Maurice Trintignant.
No, this is a very organic stat that you've managed to find here, Johnny.
Trintignant, twice winner of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh, this is very good knowledge. I'm impressed. I'm blown over, in fact.
Done my research. And so is the virtual statman.
Yeah. Oh, thanks to Sean Kelly, who is joining us across the weekend. And
no Monaco wins for Piastri yet, though.
No. Oh, here we go.
Trying to emulate Trintignant with those two. Came through Euro Cup, won it.
Yep.
Didn't win in Monaco. Came through Formula 2, won it. Didn't win in Monaco.
And do you think of anyone who did win in the second tier in Monaco?
To win once is tough, but to win twice.
This is absolute nonsense. We probably need you to talk us around Lando Norris's lap.
I did emulate the great Maurice Trintignant. Here we go then. Lando Norris on track. Is he going to get a flying lap in? And no, he is not. Pulls over to the left-hand side and comes in, so we can get deep into the life times of Maurice Trintignant.
Quick note on that pit entry, because you're watching it.
Okay, the steering is, the right-hand side is down.
Yep, copy.
The Trintignant fan club continues. Producer Joe trying to get us back on track. Bad luck, Producer Joe. It's FP3 as we go on board with Pierre Gasly.
Okay, the steering is, the right-hand side is down.
Yep, copy.
Piastri, number 81, because that's what he ran in karting.
It's usually that, isn't it? That's usually the origin of the numbers.
I feel like that one could go far for Piastri. It's not a highly desirable number, 81. No one's taken 30 off me yet.
it's still a chance.
Clinging on.
The comeback starts here. Your former teammate, one of the stars of Friday, absolutely electrifying pace. Over 1 lap for the Haas. I don't really want to mention what the long runs look like, because it was such a good 1 lap pace from Hulkenberg, and able to do something, able to manipulate that car, both in Bahrain and here over 1 lap, in a way that Kevin Magnussen, on pole position in France, the back end of last year, cannot at the moment.
But they're still wary of the long run pace.
They are really wary.
That is the balance of going aggressive, picking up the downforce and having a car that you can throw around for 1 lap that Hulkenberg has been so strong on, but then just getting through your tyres more on the consecutive high fuel running.
We were still on the early side, but everyone's just installing.
Lapping to the end, but contact at the start with Esteban Ocon meant that he damaged his front wing and lost that top 10 start. The hope for Haas is that he can get back into the top 10. Can Magnussen find a bit as well? It was a drift of his teammate yesterday. Hulkenberg through and is quicker than number 81 Oscar Piastri, the two of them the only drivers to have done a flyer so far.
Günther Steiner looking on.
What number would you have taken? Or would you take if you were to race?
I would have gone for I would have gone for Hulkenberg's number, the famous 27.
And why?
It's my birthday. So I would have gone for that, and then it would have been taken, and then you've got to look at you've got to go around the houses. Why'd you go for 30?
I was given it. It was a reserve driver number.
Okay.
Lotus.
You just kept it.
And I kept it. I liked it. No one else does. So it has remained as mine.
See how many years you get out of remaining Formula 1 driver number 30. We are joining George Russell, F1 driver number 63, on his way down to turn 13. Fun corner, this one, to watch. On board, trackside, anywhere. It's one that tempts the drivers to the wall. Had one spin there in Formula 2 this weekend. No one's clobbered the barrier yet in Formula 1.
No, both Ferraris had a little tap at the barriers in second practice last year. One of which, I think it was for Leclerc, was coming out of turn 13. The other one was coming into 4 for Sainz. No one has got...
Try to work your brakes slightly.
P3. Russell hooking it up through turn 22, the left-hander that caused most of the dramas yesterday. George Russell on the soft tyres, Lewis Hamilton out there on the softs as well. Mercedes getting straight on with it now they've hit the track.
Yeah, Mercedes looking for answers. I mean, Hamilton outside the top 10 yesterday with multiple laps to have an attack. It wasn't just a one and done FP2 if you weren't with us yesterday. It was multiple attempts possible with the tyres thanks to the smooth nature of the surface. Russell is ahead of Hamilton. Not much between them at all, 200ths of a second between the first and second cars. On the long run pace, it was Hamilton who had the advantage by about a tenth of a second. He was faster than Russell if you look at his overall average. And a reminder, in Bahrain, it was Russell who out-qualified his teammate, but Hamilton beat him in the Grand Prix.
Perez getting in the car now, getting ready to go. Perez...
Get a vibration through the pedal under braking, marker 22.
Copy.
A bit of vibration through the steering.
Go far ahead to drive.
Get out there. Alex Albon on an outlap now in the Williams. Looking forward to seeing what he can do in qualifying later on. And Sargent as well has been a decent rookie so far, all the way through. Can he take some form into qualifying? Can Williams nudge towards the top 10 potentially?
That'll certainly be the aim, given the pace that they've got the middle sector. Alex Albon looks very happy in the middle part of the lap. A driver with a lot of confidence at the moment after the team have taken even more of a step forward. He's in your picture at the moment. He's very, very happy with how things are. And in the mix, that's all a driver who's racing for a midfield team. Remember, this was the 10th team in the Constructors' Championship last year. And all you can hope for is a step forward. That's what he's got, and he's got a car that can fight for points. He did actually well. We would have shown you on board on the last lap, but Yuki Tsunoda never really got close. We would have gone 2-box and shown you Tsunoda closing in, but he never got close, even though he's a second away to shaping for the move. So Albon did well to repel. He was out of breath on the team radio, having repelled Tsunoda for the final point in Bahrain.
He's good at having a wide car, isn't he?
Yeah.
Alex Albon. That is how he scores points in a Williams, and he did it again. Qualifying pace, and then just hanging on in there in the closing stages. He's done it many a time.
This is going to give you a great idea of the speed that they take through, taking as much of the curve as possible. We go driver eye view as we complete the middle sector. And we begin the middle sector.
Through 16, 17, right-hander of 16, and then try and keep your foot to the floor through 17, getting on the gas as early as possible. Sweeping through then these meandering turns all the way through to find turn 22. That's the left-hander, and then gun it on the throttle through the right. And again, more flat-out corners. There's 27 corners around this circuit. I think there's about 10 that you've actually got to worry about in a Formula 1 car. A lot of them are just flat-out meanders through the second half of it. Albon finds the final quarter at turn 27, accelerates to the line, opens the DRS, and we'll see what the Williams can do then. On the soft tyres, goes to 6th out of 8 that have done a lap on the softs.
So Stroll goes over the line. He's on the hard tyre. He's in a totally different direction at the moment. Verstappen fastest at the moment on the hard tyre, and Gasly showing that Alpine working in all conditions.
That's a lap from Verstappen, isn't it? On the hard,
I feel
he's
we
gone
can,
to the top.
We'll just clip that up and have that on a button that we can press across the entire season. That is a demoralising lap for the rest of the field. Another superb one for the Dutch driver, who is faster than the Alpine, the Mercedes, and the Williams on the. They're on the softest compound. He's on the hardest compound. No bother. He's top of the timing page.
He did this in FP3 in Bahrain, and they just flexed the muscles on a hard tyre.
It was just a hint, wasn't there, of what was to come.
Exactly, and then it was actually pretty close through qualifying, and the muscles were fully ready to go for race day. And so far, Red Bull looking untroubled. Max actually had a harder time of it through the Bahrain practices than he has here. Just looking really hooked up, and Red Bull not sure where their threat's going to come from at the moment. Verstappen on those hards, I mean, he could find potentially as much as a second switching to softs. That's the advantage that he's got in the pocket at the moment, looking at the offset to the softs from yesterday. Gasly ahead of both Mercedes then. Gasly and the two Mercedes have done 2 flying laps on soft tyres, as has Ocon as well. Gasly's looking pretty hooked up so far this weekend.
Gasly very much looking at home with the Alpine team after a disastrous Saturday. The French driver saw him start at the very back for his first time with a non-Red Bull owned team. Then had a terrific Sunday on the attack. The set of tyres he wasn't able to use, the new softs bolted on, and he came within a second of getting past Valtteri Bottas for 8th place. Charles Leclerc has gone.
Okay, so just some lap time differences to Pierre. So we're strong in sector 1, just losing a little bit. Exit 13, exit 16, 17, entry to 22, and then exit of the last corner. Just a few little bits.
His second points finish in the last 17 races.
It's a better lap from Leclerc on the mediums. We'd expect a good few tenths, maybe around 4 tenths to come from medium to soft. So that would throw Leclerc towards the Gasly pace. I mean, trying to match up to an Alpine isn't exactly what Ferrari were aiming for coming into this weekend. But
that was not the plan. They expected to be far closer to Red Bull. Gasly really looking at home, though. I mean, this is a driver who got 12 races with the senior team at Red Bull before he was demoted again. He's had to work hard for his chance. You get 2 chances potentially with works teams. There would not be a third. Be interesting to see what his mood was on the Saturday. Just misses out on Verstappen's benchmark time, losing time in the 3rd sector. Carlos Sainz on the radio for Ferrari complaining about derating.
So that's just harvesting energy at the end of the straights. Very, very power sensitive, this circuit. You've got to deploy as much energy as you can, but if you do too much at any given point, you end up just suffering at the end of some of the other straights. And Sainz then is complaining. It just feels suddenly like you've got no grunt at all at the end of some of these long straights, and potentially as you cross the line as well. So Sainz maybe just running out of juice of the hybrid battery power that he's got as he's coming over the line. Fair gap between Sainz and Leclerc as well. Normally that means he's had some bonus around the rest of the lap, though. So not optimal.
So Perez, he took his first pole here last year, looking to go back-to-back. His only pole in Formula 1. And he'll be hoping to produce something.
Okay, Kev, we still think the next lap might be quicker. If you go for it, people are still improving on the 3rd lap, so it's your call, really.
Yeah, but I want to have more time to go through stuff.
Okay, that's fine. Best box then.
Russell is attacking in the final part of the lap now. Not much left for him to do.
Alex Albon, alert.
Yeah.
Hey, up into the top 5 in the Williams. Had a decent day yesterday. Looked really good. Didn't manage to hook up the lap on the softs in FP2.
Yeah. So, yeah, Eng 2 is latched.
Turn radio off.
Yeah, so I was latched talking to the driver then.
You're still talking to me. Okay, now it's okay.
Near or in the top 10, so he's going to be hoping that he can change that stat today. Similar high-speed demands of this place, albeit with the walls a lot closer than Spa.
Traffic.
Copy, yep. Very busy now.
As Hamilton had to bail out, that's him.
Traffic.
Copy, yep. Very busy now.
Stroll on the circuit there for Hamilton, just sitting on the apex, and Lewis. We had a fair amount of that yesterday. A lot of drivers tripping over each other, especially in the first sector. It's difficult for drivers to be getting out of the way. You need to be getting the call on the radio, and if it's a little bit late, then you've got a car flying around a blind corner behind you, and you've got to be taking evasive action, as Hamilton had to do on the last lap. Here he goes again.
So Hamilton pushing once again, hoping for a clear track directly ahead of him at the venue where he took the last of his 103 pole positions and the last of his 103 Grand Prix victories at the back end of the 2021 season in a thrilling Sunday evening duel with Max Verstappen. They've moved the DRS at the turn 27.
Went on the curb, but felt like really aggressive.
Yeah, copy that, copy that. We'll have a good look.
They've also moved it further down the straight before you can activate it. 70 metres mid-session move, it was announced. So the FIA tweaking DRS. They don't want it to be too powerful, but they still want it to facilitate overtaking.
I quite like that the detection point is not before the corner now.
Yeah.
It was a little bit ridiculous at times, wasn't it, with Hamilton and Verstappen, with Leclerc and Verstappen playing games before the final corner, going as slow as possible, locking up to not just get your nose ahead of the line when you're coming into the final corner. I don't think they can play games coming out of that now. So still, probably if you're neck and neck, you want to be behind and take the DRS in towards the first corner. But that DRS zone has been shortened slightly as well, so it's not going to be as slam dunk to try and pass into turn one. Hamilton peels off left into the pits, didn't manage to improve on that lap. Verstappen comes across the line still on those hards.
How is the car?
Yeah, I think we picked up good front end in the last bit compared to yesterday. And the high speed was a little bit neutral 22. But I'm happy with the grip I have into the high speeds in general, please. Just I had a very long pedal going into 13.
Okay, we're having a look. Which was that corner where it was neutral in particular? Standout corner?
22.
Yeah, thought so.
20 minutes since I saw the old one being removed. That's how long it takes for a Formula One power unit to be changed. The team are almost bolting it back together. There's still obviously a huge amount more work to do to put the bodywork back together. Some of the cooling system's been removed. So a lot of work to do, and I don't think we are going to see De Vries in this session in half an hour. But it's just utterly impressive that it takes just about 19 minutes to change an engine and a gearbox on a modern Formula One car. Not forgetting that these are the most complex Formula One cars of all time. So guys, I just wanted to point that one out to you. So back to you upstairs.
It took about 4 hours plus when we first had these hybrid power units in 2014. It would be a day's work to try and change one.
There was a pre-season test in 2014 where there were ridiculously low numbers of laps being completed due to that very fact. Very grateful we weren't broadcasting that on F1 TV.
Yeah, would have been tough, wouldn't it? It was a double whammy. The power units were so much more fragile. They're so complex, and they still are.
Yeah, I want the helmet change for the next run. This visor is too dark. I need a lighter visor, please. It's quite cloudy today.
Understood. Martin understands.
The power units are so much better. Have to get through on such a few amount of components as well. We've already got the third control electronics for Leclerc this weekend. We're going to see some grid penalties, I'm sure, for power unit changes throughout the year, as is kind of customary around Monza time, Spa time. But generally, they've moved forward so much in the last decade.
Yeah, Monza last year, we're waiting 4 hours after quali to find out what the grid was for the race the next day.
It'll happen again. It's a Monza special, isn't it?
It is a Monza special.
It's so power sensitive. The 6 corners, effectively, at Monza. And if you don't think you got a chance because you need to take an engine at some point, you take it there. You hope that you can race through, as Sainz did last year from the back. Hamilton as well had a bit of a charge. Sainz was very good.
Turn 2, pretty understeering. Consistent.
From the back of the grid in 2021.
He did. That really was rocket ship stuff. And Hamilton goes from the back of qualifying to the front of the Grand Prix in Brazil, as Russell goes deep into turn 27 to make way for Hulkenberg, who's been complaining on the radio that his visor's too dark. So he's going to have to tweak that when he gets... Obviously, you might run a certain visor for the floodlights, and then in the daylight, not quite working.
Looks like he's got a full tint on, Nico. You can see the shiny reflection off it as we saw him come across the line there. Norris going into 8th in the McLaren. Second set of tyres for him in this session so far. Not pulling up too many trees at the moment. So Hulkenberg, yeah, you want to have perfect vision around this place. Of course, they'll be under the lights later on. This will be the last time there'll even be the debate about the full tint. You might want a light smoke on the visor for later on, a half tint. Don't want necessarily the full clear. I was never a man for a full clear, but you cannot have it too dark. That's worst case. And it's just really, you've got to squint to try and see anything.
That is not what you want around here. Certainly quite a lot of blind corners, very high speed, and especially when Hulkenberg is in ridiculous form over one lap, able to make that Haas work at the moment.
Magnussen's ahead for now. Hulkenberg improved on that last one as we saw him over the line, but a couple of tenths away from K-Mag, medium tyre to medium tyre. But it's when he bolts on the soft, so that's what we've seen. The step he gets from drilling one lap on a soft tyre was fantastic in Bahrain, through FP2 and through qualifying. The two crucial, well, one preparation session and then the crucial qualifying session, but both under the lights. And it was the same thing yesterday for Nico. Able to extract that pace as the temperature drops, the track comes alive, you bolt on the soft tyres and you find the speed.
So, F1 Live, Lando Norris ready.
Struggling turn 13, still with the front. Turn 22 was better, but potentially a bit of instability on entry, so maybe a bit too aggressive on the toggle.
Is pretty much in the middle of the lap, slightly cambered left, and Norris struggling with front end there. Turn 22 is the next left that he would come up to. You got the right hander of 16, and then you get the left of 22. He's struggling with instability on the turn-in, but it sounds like he's attributing that to a toggle that he's got going on. So maybe just a bit more engine braking in there to try and rotate the car and get rid of the understeer he's got at that corner, turn 13. So he's trying to play with the tools at the cockpit, and maybe he's just overcooked it for 22. So a bit of a trade-off there for Lando.
Let's go down to Sam, who's outside the McLaren garage.
Yeah, I'm just having a look to see what's going on. When you hear Jolien talking about a toggle, it's literally a toggle switch on the steering wheel he could be complaining about. Just wait to see what the mechanics are really looking at. No one's really going to talk to Norris, and it looks like they're almost ignoring him. But the reason that's happening is the chaps in the kitchen island in the middle of the garage will be talking to him on the radio. He's got a radio headset in his helmet. He's talking to the mechanics and engineers about whatever he's concerned about. Now, there is a bit of work going on the right-hand side of the car. The mechanics are just looking at something under the floor. Now, you quite often see this generation of car come in, the mechanics have a look at the floor. They ran their fingers over the surfaces just to see if everything's entirely intact. But there's a lot more attention on the right-hand side of the floor. So I do wonder, even down to the little flow separator things down that stick out from the inside of the wheel, part of the new rules package. And they are just really looking at the floor. So I wonder if it wasn't just a toggle, there was another bit of communication from Lando saying that he's run a curve somewhere a little bit hard, and they just want to take a quite tighter look at it because they don't seem to have any clarity on what the issue is for Norris. A little drill coming out to make an adjustment, perhaps. No, it's a little torchlight you see going on. And
I think rotation in high speed is quite good. I think it's a good place. I feel a little bit exit of turn 13 traction, and turn 17 is a little bit tricky to go for that. Other than that, it's okay. Still, turn 22 is massive understeer, but yeah, we can ignore that.
through 22 particularly, striking out on the bottom of the car, and potentially they're having a look because of a slight escapade that Lando's had then on that last run. It sounded like just a bit of an...
Okay, front tires are okay. Lean on the rears in the high speed. Lean on the rear.
Run so far, so the tyres running out of freshness. Bouncing quite a lot at this point. Look at his head, bobbing around. More porpoising than I've seen so far from any car really this year.
Yeah, a lot of bouncing for Lando Norris and the McLaren down this straight. And then Ferrari is seemingly the most affected car heading to the final corner.
It's definitely bobbing a little bit more than I've noticed.
Hi, lost the first shift.
Okay, copy.
Talking of McLaren and Ferrari, you've got two drivers there. Charles Leclerc, this is this a revisit of the problem that he had yesterday? So Charles, let's listen in.
Hi, lost the first shift.
Okay, copy.
I mean, it sounded fine from what we heard there on the radio. You got such a short run before you need to turn left and negotiate that corner in the pit lane. You can only really take a couple of shifts, try and get yourself to full throttle as quickly as possible, and then blend out and get onto the circuit. Sounded okay, but Leclerc would have just felt that he pressed the upshift and it didn't quite engage as quickly as he would expect and want from where he's going to be in the midfield for the start tomorrow. Midfield at best for Leclerc. He had a great start in Bahrain. We've heard a lot of Leclerc clutch complaints over the radio so far this season.
We have.
But when it mattered, he was one of the key winners in the start in Bahrain a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, well, unable to keep Sergio Perez behind, but retiring from third place in the Grand Prix. He was 24 seconds behind Max Verstappen when his Ferrari expired. And Leclerc looking to fight through on Sunday as we check in with Esteban Ocon, hoping for a total opposite of the opening Sunday he had in Bahrain, and continuing on his long run and appearing into your picture now, a one-time Grand Prix winner.
Okay, so a bit of info on timing. Sargent found just under a second going on his second new soft tyre. Let's see what we can get on this one.
Very similar. 1 year ago, we had the Alpines very nearly all the way down the pit wall as Alonso and Ocon went wheel to wheel for the first time, but not the last time as teammates. Eventually, they had to tell them to settle down on the radio after some great wheel to wheel action.
It was the start of something brewing, I think, between the two Alpines. We never knew it at the time, but it happened again in Budapest. They were very close. Ocon with a late change of direction to stop Alonso going through. And then, of course, in Brazil as well, where Fernando ended up actually getting a penalty for clouting the back of Esteban Ocon. But finally, when he knew he was leaving the team, vented his frustration at what had been obviously a year-long gripe with his teammate. Both Alpines are out on some soft tyres. So they were just doing a prep lap, out one prep lap, 10 seconds off the pace of Perez, and now they're pushing. So they were trying to just bed in the tyres on that first lap.
Looking down there at the fastest driver, it's Sergio Perez at the moment. Closest he's ever been to the championship lead, Sergio Perez. Hoping to be just the second driver from his country to lead the championship. And Sam Collins has made his way back down to Ferrari.
Yeah, Alex, I was listening to the conversations about the radio message we heard about Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He's brought the car, the number 16 car, back in, and let's see what the mechanics are going to be taking a look at on this red car that's arrived back in the pits. There doesn't seem to be a great sense of concern around this car, but around the team in general, there is a sense of concern, because let's not forget, Charles Leclerc is starting with that 10-place grid penalty in tomorrow's Grand Prix. So regardless of what happens this afternoon in qualifying, he's going to lose 10 places. The other real worrying thing for Ferrari is that they know that pretty much those control electronics are not going to carry on all the way through the season, because those control electronics are only really designed to last half the season, and so it's almost certain that you're going to see the number 16 car take another penalty to at some point during the season. So But if you look in the back of the garage, there's some interested onlookers. You've got Felipe Massa, who I understand has lost his voice, behind the car of Charles Leclerc. But if you come over to Carlos Sainz's side of the garage, Sainz, the Spaniard, is on his way in at the moment, so we're going to stay out of the way of the mechanics. But you can see just at the back, there is a very famous face. It's Jackie Ickx, a man who's got great history with this manufacturer as well. Not quite sure why he's come along, but him and his daughter, Vanina Ickx, who was a sports car racer of some note, was also around. So lots of interested faces around the Ferrari garage. Meanwhile, looking at Charles Leclerc's mechanics, still no great concern. They're not making any major changes at the moment, just doing the normal procedure of wiping down that bodywork. And so it does all seem fairly straightforward here down at Ferrari. Back to you guys.
Not quite sure why Jackie Ickx has come along. For the love of the sport, Sam. For the love of the sport. He's in the back of the Ferrari garage. Is that not enough?
So he can get his name strap on the graphic as an 8-time Grand Prix winner.
New underwear needed for Esteban Ocon.
Oh, man.
Whilst
we would have had to interrupt Sam, which we haven't done so far this season.
And whilst he was talking, there was a bit of a tank slapper from Ocon coming on the exit of the turn 10 curb, where Schumacher ditched his Haas into the wall in qualifying last year. Ocon tried to improve. Gasly did improve in the Alpine, but Ocon so close to just losing.
Okay, have a think about what you'd like for balance for the next run.
Did you increase the flap?
Nope, left it the same. To me, I think we should be bringing this down.
No. Keep it the same.
Okay, understood.
Sir Lewis Hamilton over the line, up to 4th place. Still behind the Alpine time set ages ago.
Gasly might fancy himself a little bit for qualifying here.
Man who's been on the front row before in Formula 1. Might not be looking that far ahead, but he'll be certainly dreaming of row 2, won't he?
And what I like about it is it's every lap for Pierre. He's consistently there. He's putting pressure on Ocon on the other side of the garage. That's when you start to see drivers, they're all starting to lean on it a little bit more. They will be on this last set of tyres before qualifying. And when you're Esteban Ocon and you're consistently just a couple of tenths away from Pierre, that's when you start to risk the mistakes.
Let's have another look at the moment for Esteban Ocon that we were telling you about.
Yeah, my right mirror keeps coming down.
Okay.
Feeding back about the mirrors. The mirror's slightly larger this year. That was one of the changes. So this is the moment we're on board with Esteban Ocon.
Oh, he just goes out, bottoms out over that curb on the right-hand side, and has a huge twitch then to try and save the car. The rear lurched, and that's a heart in mouth for Esteban Ocon on the corner where the wall greets you so quickly on the left-hand side. If you properly lose control, blend out of the throttle, scoop it up, get your heart rate under control and carry on. But that is just it, starting to lean on everything a little bit more, under pressure from Gasly's performance on the other side of the garage, and Ocon without an improvement in the end.
Alpine paying money to get Pierre Gasly in the car. They had an option. They had lots of options. They could have gone for Hülkenberg. They could have returned Daniel Ricciardo to that seat.
My number 30 still available.
Palmer's still about. Will drive if available. And yeah, so Ocon knows he's got to bring it. That's going to be a story that we revisit time and time and time again. But now it's time for a Red Bull going fastest. I'll bring you this. Not for the first time, not for the last time in Formula 1. Hülkenberg's done another ripper of a time to go up to 5th place, but Perez, on those soft tyres, has completed turn 27. He's going to get into DRS territory. There it goes, the rear wheel.
Steering vibration, apex of 10.
Ford. Overall, he's 4 tenths ahead of his teammate. He's half a second clear of the next fastest driver.
Car width wide of the apex at the final corner. Cost him a little bit of time there. No improvement for Checo. In fact, 10th and a half away from his previous best in the final sector. So there's a bit more on the table if he could get that Red Bull turned in to turn 27. Let's have a look then with Fernando Alonso. Exit turn 13. Basically 3 more corners to go from this point. Here's the first at 16. Small correction.
Upshifts improved.
A little bit of traffic for himself up towards turn 22. Hopefully that car, the McLaren, stays to the left. Yep. 2/10 down on Perez through 2 sectors though. Remember, Checo didn't maximise the final sector.
So let's just check in and see what Alonso and Stroll can do. Waiting, and here comes the final corner.
Right into the apex. Ooh. Small correction on the exit. Might delay him slightly to throttle. That's the proper apex then that Alonso took. But he still loses time to the end of the lap. So Aston Martin just about within half a second of the Red Bull. Stroll not too far away from Fernando Alonso.
No. Be encouraging for the Canadian driver trying to get on terms with his multiple world champion teammate. Same issue he had last year as well. Verstappen improving. Hamilton up to P3 at the same time as we check in with Stoffel Van Dorn on the left-hand side, who I believe is going to be joining us on F1 TV ahead of qualifying.
A couple of real stony stairs, weren't there?
Yeah, I'm sure Jess Hawkins standing next to him is enjoying the session as well. It's good times for Aston Martin, even though Hamilton's just gone past. I don't think anyone at Aston Martin expected to be fighting Mercedes until we got to the test. As Max Verstappen goes over the line and is 0.3 of a second ahead of Sergio Perez, which is around the average gap that he was ahead of his teammate across an average of all the qualifying sessions.
You can push again this lap, Albon 1. You can push this lap, or you can do a double cool down, or you can start the lap and see what you think.
In all 3 sectors of the lap.
A lot of that damage was in the final sector for Verstappen over Perez. Not much to separate the 2 Red Bulls through the first couple of sectors, and then Checo just a bit wide in the final corner. And that Max stretches his legs on the overall lap times.
Good blocked by the Aston. Copy.
Didn't look
Good blocked by the Aston. Copy.
always going to be pushing out wide when you're on the throttle. It was Lance Stroll leaving the pits. Difficult one for Stroll as well, because you've got absolutely no line of sight in your mirrors at that point. Your mirrors are pointing to the pit exit, and you've got a car way off to your right. You just can't spot, and so Valtteri couldn't commit to the corner. Here comes Gasly again.
It'll be interesting to see where Pierre Gasly can go, or if he can go, because there's a multitude of drivers peeling off the racing line. I've slowed him down there, caught them at a decent place. There are some parts of the circuit where you can't get out of the way. And car placement between team and driver is going to be crucial for qualifying later on.
We're going to see someone getting into trouble, surely, especially in Q1, when all the cars are out there jostling for a bit of track position. Gasly not quite able to pick up the pace in the middle sector, losing a little bit. Could be somewhat distracting as well when you have so many cars jumping out of the way. Even on the flat-out sections, it shouldn't really affect you. No dirty air in the corners, you should be well set up. But it's just distracting sometimes when you have 3 or 4 cars all bunched together and you never can be 100% sure what they're going to do. Here he comes to the line then, in the Alpine. Has looked pretty good so far. 6th. Stays 6th. No improvement for Gasly. Piastri's quick, isn't he, in the McLaren? Oscar Piastri up into the top 5.
Bit of form around here. Car 81.
No Monaco wins, but has he got some Jeddah wins?
He's won here.
We have lots of time, Nico, so we could drive through and do another practice start. We can do that now.
Copy.
Teammate Lando Norris trying to pick his way through.
Whoa! It's dangerous what these guys do. They need to use a radio or something. That could have been a massive crash.
Okay, understood. We'll report now.
That was Verstappen, wasn't it, in the Red Bull? And just sitting on the racing line, coming through that whole section, turn 4 up to turn 12.
There he is apologising. As he apologised.
Mate!
Apologies.
Apologies. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what we were talking about a few moments ago. Engineer and driver communication. If that happens in qualifying, that is a nailed-on penalty.
It is, and it's that sequence of corners, turn 4 to turn 12, where it's just blind. You're blending out of the throttle a couple of times through there once you've negotiated.
How much do I have time for drive-through? I've got to set its tyres down.
Copy, yeah, we can probably do that.
I've done 2 laps less than the other guys, so.
Ava.
Again now, as is Verstappen very quickly, but in qualifying that will be a nailed-on penalty if he does it. And not to mention, it's pretty dangerous.
Yes. Yeah, not what you want to see around here. Now, this is interesting where Norris goes in comparison to his teammate. Let's see where Lando Norris puts the car. Goes ahead of Oscar Piastri, but Piastri will be very, very cheered indeed to see that he's only 1/100th of a second behind his very highly rated teammate. And Max Verstappen not having the greatest final sector because it looked like he was going to blitz and disappear. There, not a personal improvement for him in the final sector. Fastest of anyone in the session so far in the first 2. He is very nearly half a second clear of his teammate. He's 0.8 of a second ahead of Lance Stroll as Ferrari remain in the pit lane, having not done a run on the soft tyres.
It's so close, the rest of the field. If Red Bull weren't in this, we would be set for the most thrilling qualifying maybe ever.
Yeah,
you've got Aston Martin. Okay, Fernando Alonso's just nibbled that time down to the Red Bulls by a couple of hundred.
To a mere 0.8 of a second. Yeah.
But, I mean, Stroll's done quite well. Just a couple of hundred separating the 2 Aston Martins, 3rd and 4th. You've got Mercedes in there. You've got McLaren finding a turn of speed at the moment. Alpine, we know they've been quick, within a quarter of a second of the Astons. Joe in the Alfa Romeo is 4/10 away, as is Hulkenberg and Albon's Williams. You've got pretty much every team within 4/10 of Aston Martin, who are best of the rest. The best of the rest is currently a podium spot.
The turn 10 incident was investigated. No need to inject any drama into proceedings. No further investigation for impeding. It would be a different story in qualifying.
It would. It would be a slam dunk grid drop for Verstappen. So everyone's going to have to be on their toes. Engineers as well. Got to be relaying that information in Q1, particularly 18-minute session. Cars can be out of sequence. You're so focused on doing your own thing, getting the tyres into the right window, finding your own bit of space, that if you're trundling around and you're not aware of cars roaring up behind you, do as good a job as you like, but you're not going to be starting on pole.
Verstappen, who last year won from 6 different grid positions. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, 10th, and 14th. As he set the all-time record for wins in a single season of Formula 1.
Okay, should we see what Ferrari can do?
I'm really intrigued to see what they can do.
And 18. Leclerc and Sainz. Leclerc a couple of tenths ahead. They've only run a medium tyre so far. Leclerc, surely with half an eye to that race pace in the Ferrari that he will need to come through from his 10th place grid drop that he'll carry for tomorrow. But now he's just left the pits on the softs, as has Sainz. Tsunoda then the only driver not to run a soft, and he's out there on the mediums. We just wait for the Ferraris to see what they can do. Tsunoda improves, but will prop up the times as it stands.
Alonso's been given a black and white flag for failing to follow the race. There you go, confirmation on the screen that he's failing to follow the race director's instructions.
Norris had one yesterday, didn't he, for cutting the white line, trying to come into the pits. I wonder if it's a similar thing for Alonso.
Now, we haven't seen any evidence of why he's got that, but it's just a warning.
My battery doesn't want to charge that last bit.
We can go for a second slow lap if you want to, Matt, just to fully top it up. Let's try that.
Last bit.
We can go for a second slow lap if you want to, Matt, just to fully top it up. Let's try that.
Surprisingly, got a lot of time to recharge the battery, but Verstappen needing a second slow lap then to recharge.
The rear grip is, didn't feel much rear grip.
Wherever in the world you may be, and if you're a Ferrari fan, are you about to see Charles Leclerc clock at the ready? It's a slightly lazy exit out of turn. No, DRS
he's not
over.
pushing. Yeah, no, he's not. He did not leap out of that final corner. So I think he's doing just a routine prep lap here, which is exactly what we saw Alpine doing. Now the track is very unabrasive. Is the opposite of the surface that we had in Bahrain. where the surface roughness was so coarse last time out. Here so smooth, and it means it's not working the tyres. So even though the temperatures are a pleasant 27 degrees, they're not getting the temperatures up into the right window on that first lap. So Leclerc trundling around again on the racing line with Norris tucked in behind him at a snail's pace in Formula 1 terms. Let's see if Sainz does the same thing. Yes, he is behind. So we'll wait another lap for the Ferraris. I don't want to catch a red flag here, or they'll be going in blind to qualifying.
It's been very well behaved so far out there for Formula 1 this weekend.
Doesn't feel like Jeddah, does it?
It really doesn't feel like the two previous weekends that we've seen. Logan Sargent out there at the moment, setting personal best Sector 1 and Sector 2. He is on for a projected improvement. We'll see on the left-hand side of your picture whether he can get on terms with his teammate. He's been quite close to his teammate. Albon scoring the final point with 10th in Bahrain. Sargent was 12th, good run through the field. He got past Kevin Magnussen. So Sargent moves up to 14th. And there you go, very close to his teammate. Both of them 1.3 seconds off the pace.
Half a tenth off Albon. That's another good effort from Sargent.
He carries on with that, his stock is going to go up and up and up.
Well, it's already going up. I mean, he came in from being 4th in the Formula 2 Championship last year. And I know Mr. Formula 2 over here thinks that he was better than he showed.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of very strong feature race wins. Where he
Okay, so Max's third push lap. He's gone purple in Sector 1. It's a 10th and a half in every sector, basically 10th and a half in every sector.
matching Albon, which is a far cry from what Nicholas Latifi could do last year.
Max Verstappen's gone round again. He's now 0.6 faster than his teammate. He's nearly a second faster than the next team, which is Fernando Alonso. So that's what Verstappen can do at exactly the same time that Charles Leclerc is attacking the racetrack. Jolien, take us through it.
So Leclerc then coming through turns 9 and 10. This is where Ocon had his big moment. It's fairly serene then for Leclerc, even at high speed. Half a second down on Max through the first sector. Now it can open it up a little bit through the faster Sector 2 and then Sector 3. Exits turn 13. Long run. This is why it's so power sensitive. Pretty much the second half of this lap. Hit the brakes for 16, the right and then the left, and we get another long full throttle stretch up towards turn 22. Sainz half a second down on Max's first sector as well.
Just keep the rear cool as much as possible.
Missing the apex just by a fraction at 22, and that put him wide over that curb. The first big curb strike that we've seen there today. Saw so many yesterday, and Leclerc losing time as a result of that. Late to the throttle. It's another big drag up to this final stop at 27. Fractionally wide of the apex as well at that final corner. Sainz is on a path through 2 sectors, but should have him in the final sector because Leclerc did not hook that up. Goes 10th, 1.4 seconds down on Verstappen. Not good for Ferrari, but let's see if Sainz can complete the final sector and be a little bit more respectable.
3 minutes to go. Ferrari are in a dollop of trouble on the evidence of this lap. Now we're expecting this to be better. Maybe 8th place. Can Sainz aim for that? That is not where they expect it to be. He displaces only his teammate. And Ferrari, after yesterday, said they had more in the locker, but in these conditions, a couple of hours before qualifying, they are in the middle of the pack.
No front end for Sainz. Was almost trialling a wet line through the final corner, just nowhere near that apex. Had to wait for the throttle as well. So neither Ferrari looking hooked up. That's the curb strike. We were riding on board with it. With the Ferrari as he went over there, you could hear him come off the throttle and clout that curve, and it looked pretty spectacular from the outside as well. There's time for them to go again, and I wonder if the tyres just weren't in the right window for them. The grip just wasn't coming for either Ferrari driver through there. The front end was what was really going for both of them in the final couple of corners. It's front limited this circuit as well. All these fast sweeps through turns 4 up to turn 13. The long 180-degree left-hander. Just take it out of your right front particularly. And that's what you need for turn 22 and turn 27.
This is the trackside view. Static camera we've got down there to give you an idea of the speed. Conveying it nicely is Zhou Guanyu. Tries to pick his way past Sergio Perez, who went round again and did improve just a couple of moments after Max Verstappen did, but he's still 0.6 of a second away. So he's
Well,
still 2 minutes
we
left.
just go a little bit slow. It's a 2-minute out lap anyway with the start, so it's no problem. And we'll just go slow if we have to at the end. It's less than 2 minutes left, it'll be no problem.
Exactly what's happened. No let up from Verstappen behind the wheel. He's just been given some grip with those soft tyres and he's used it. He's second clear of everyone that's not his teammate, and he's 6/10 clear of Perez.
Mighty stuff so far. You've got to deliver in qualifying. When
What the is this guy doing, man?
Max Verstappen in a league of his own. This is Zhou Guanyu coming up to the back of a car all over the middle of the apex.
What the is this guy doing, man?
Yuki Tsunoda, the car in his prime.
I don't quite know what Tsunoda is doing out there in this session. The only AlphaTauri to participate, and he's not chucked on a soft tyre before qualifying, which is an unusual run plan. The final hour, I know it's not the best representation you get before qualifying because the daylight, the track grip will come up, the temperature will drop slightly later on. Still think you'd want to look in on a soft tyre and see what you can do. We're expecting there to be a sort of 4/10 half a second gap with the softs, which will put Tsunoda with Bottas at the tail end of the order, but doing their own run plan.
You can see Max Verstappen's fastest overall time, a couple of tenths of a second back on the pole position mark of last year. Everyone else is...
We can go for... We can maybe get another lap in, but the tyres will be a little bit on the one side. Up to you.
Yeah. How we're doing?
We've got about 10 seconds margin.
Third and downwards in the to set the grid later on. Going to be very, very tight. Driver can make the difference. Now, maybe with the tyre temperature where he wants it, can Charles Leclerc turn that frown upside down?
He's a couple of tenths up on himself through 2 sectors, and he didn't go wide over that curb, so this should be a decent improvement for Leclerc.
Lando, I would just drive straight out. Just drive straight out.
I'm past the light. I'm good.
Or to see if Charles can get right up to that apex, turn the car. It's better, actually, he's fighting the rear of the car more in the final corner this time. A couple of stabs at turning in. Drives to the line, and Leclerc does improve up to 6th place.
Still second adrift of the benchmark time if you consider that he was racing Max Verstappen for victory all the way to the line last year. He is 1.1 seconds.
Okay, Kev, so you and Nico are going to be the first 2 cars to do starts.
He's chasing it all the way through turn 27, including the lap, concluding the session, pushing on there, still on course for an overall improvement. Carlos Sainz goes up to 10th position. So Carlos Sainz across the line and in 10th place. Ferrari 6th and 10th. They expected to be challenging the Red Bull pace. Aston Martin still the second fastest car. Good lap from Hamilton in response to yesterday. Their swap positions, aren't they, with Mercedes?
Mode slow, 2 burnouts, start on the left-hand side in mode RS.
Floodlights, but it is Max Verstappen with the number 1 on his car, with the number 1 next to his name on the timing page.
That is some golf from Red Bull to the rest. Some golf. How have they done that? It's FP3, maybe they've been all bells and whistles in this session, and we can have more from Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari later on, but a second is just a huge margin.
So just an update, we think actually where you are now is good.
He started to get better, and then the race he was hooked up and was never fully allowed to push. He just looks like he's turned up, happy with the balance. He's been on it from the first lap, and he's in a different league to everyone. They're fighting it out for third.
Yeah, there's Formula Verstappen, and then there's Formula 1, and everyone else is scrapping at the moment. Sergio Perez has an advantage, but yeah, Verstappen checked out front. You've got to deliver. It's, you know, races are not won in practice sessions. You've got to deliver later on. Lots of time for him to play with them.
Yeah, qualifying should be done for him, so long as he doesn't get caught out. They don't try to do something tricky on the run plan. He's got to just put the lap times in Q1 and Q2. Don't rely on a last minute bit of heroics, because a red flag can always put pay to your lap. But the race around here, we've seen it change a couple of times. We've seen the
I don't feel much, especially rear grip. But I would say overall as well, but yeah, especially rear grip. The traction, like, quite snappy overall.
Yeah, Yuki, we agree with you. We need to have a look.
The pole later on.
We'll clip up that sentence as well, because that could well be said.
Fill your boots.
This year. It's unusual, even in the eras where Mercedes have been winning multiple Grand Prix and even coming off the back of a season where Max Verstappen won 15. It wasn't like this. It wasn't in this region. And if you're a recent Formula One fan, there are very few times that you get a team 1 second clear of the rest of the field. Fernando Alonso will try and do something about it. And remember, he is a lightning fast starter. We've seen him Silverstone sprint race. He made up 6th places a couple of years ago. So Alonso will not take it lying down as he tries to return to the podium. It's only 2 podiums in 9 years. Can he do 2 in 2 weeks? He's definitely got the car to fight for it as they complete the practice starts. And that is practice in the books. The real thing coming your way later on for qualifying to set the grid for the 2nd Grand Prix of the year. Advantage, advantage, and advantage Red Bull, but incredibly tight from Alonso in 3rd all the way down. You go all the way down to Logan Sargent in 16th, covered by half a second. So there'll be plenty of spectacle coming your way for Formula One qualifying, but it's Max Verstappen healthily clear the rest of the field. His teammate Sergio Perez in 2nd, then it's Alonso ahead of his.
And we keep up the pace.
Where am I? Black and white flag?
I'll show you later.
Smile on the face of McLaren. I know it's an unrepresentative session, but if they're in those positions later on in qualifying, they will be delighted. Top 10 rounded up by Gasly and Sainz. Didn't look happy in that final sector when we joined him on board. George Russell was 11th, Zhou Guanyu in 12th. Then it was Hulkenberg, Ocon, Albon, Sargent, Magnussen, Bottas, Tsunoda, and Nick de Vries had an engine change and didn't take part in the session. Well, my thanks to Jodie Palmer and the whole team here for providing the sound, the pictures, the graphics, everything in between. We have a fascinating qualifying session coming your way later on under the floodlights, one of the fastest circuits of the year. Looking forward to it. But for now, we will send it downstairs to Sam Collins, who I'm reliably reassured today is joined by Rosanna Tennant.
Woohoo! Yes, he is joined by...
But yeah, I'm really confused why we're slow, because balance itself is not too bad. I mean, a little bit snappy in traction, but yeah, I think just grip. Yeah.
This is cars.